gonna be a little something more. I've got a plan in mind, a special thing in store. The light bulb inside my head says, get out and play, 'cause you never feel this way. It's my lucky day, it's my lucky day. It's my lucky day, my lucky day. Don't need a pot of gold, a rabbit's foot or to be told. It's my lucky day, it's my lucky day.
Hello, happy Tuesday, my friends. I am so happy to be here. I am so happy to bring you another really exciting guest who does something really, really cool. So I'm going to go ahead and welcome my guest, Jillian. So Jillian Knowles is a leadership and career coach and founder of Cellwonk Wellness, a coaching strategy consulting, and wellness events practice. Words are really hard today. She specializes in science based performance strategies, career development, and hyper personalized wellness solutions that focus on our most valuable asset, our energy. Drawing on a decade of corporate leadership and talent development experience, cutting edge research in energetic health, the creative therapeutic arts, and subject matter expertise in the human design system, she empowers individuals to redefine the rules governing their work, lifestyle, and wellness. Jillian, I am so happy you are here. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited about this conversation.
And I will tell our friends who are tuning in, please drop us a comment. Let us know that you're here. We would absolutely love for you to be part of the conversation. I know you will have questions for Jillian, and I want to make sure we are able to get those answered for you. So drop them in the chat. So happy to be here. So, Jillian, let's start with the very beginning. Tell us about yourself, who you are, what you do, how in the world you found human design.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll take it back to childhood because I feel like Kid Jill is definitely alive and well now and in everything that I'm doing in my work. But I grew up as a hyper creative kid. I grew up as a dancer and doing theater, and I think that gave me the mindset of an athlete, very competitive and disciplined, but also the heart of a performer, and kind of loving talent in all capacity. But at the same time, I was also career obsessed as a kid. I remember Googling colleges that I wanted to get into from third grade. I was always fantasizing about what it would look like when I was a career woman. And fast forward, when I started my professional journey, I ended up in recruiting and HR and in the talent space, kind of channeling that obsession into being able to help other people with their careers. And I worked my way up the corporate ladder, worked my way into becoming the director of talent acquisition at a leading firm here in New York. And I always say that that experience was the honor and a challenge of a lifetime. I was establishing their talent function and managing and leading teams and helping hundreds of people end up in purposeful career roles for themselves. And it was a really great adventure. But kind of going back to that career obsession, there were also shadow sides that came along with being so career and work obsessed. And for me, that looked like workaholism and a high propensity to burnout. And I was kind of, riding that never ending hamster wheel, working my way up to get to that role in the timeline that I did when I approached my second really, really brutal work burnout a couple years back. And when that happened, I started researching into different fields of literature to figure out, okay, I need to solve here because clearly Something in the way that I'm working isn't working because it's not sustainable enough. And I wanted to be able to show up as the highest performer that I could. I wanted to be able to win for my business and show up for my team, but I needed to change my approach. So I dove into, the typical business and professional development and career books and research. But the answer that I ended up finding ended up coming from outside of those fields. It was in metaphysical philosophy and epigenetics and in Ayurveda and in human design. And it was this commonality between energy and how important energy was when it came to your health and your performance and how you showed up and operated in life. So that was really a big unlock, and particularly when finding human design ended up being a system that made sense of this invisible thing called energy. It gave a user manual for how to use energy. And I really integrated everything that I learned about it for myself. And it helped me recover from my burnout. It helped me change how I was showing up as a leader. It completely transformed how I was managing my people and changed my approach for how I was able to go about my career and win in business. And it was such a big unlock. But at the same time, in addition to the energy unlock that human design ended up being, human design is also such a great avenue to find out more about your purpose. And it really helped me gain a stronger sense of what my purpose was the more that I dove in and discovered aspects of myself through human design. And I always say that purpose kind of comes calling and knocking at your door. And over time, purpose came calling for me. And at first, it kind of starts as a whisper. And then if you ignore it, it becomes a shout. And then it becomes a scream like, girl, you're supposed to be doing something. And that's the call that I got. And it ended up being, a call to bring everything that I had learned about this approach and share it out with a larger avenue and share it out with other businesses and be able to help more people through it. And that's where Cell Wonk Wellness was born. I launched in 2023, and as a coaching, consulting, and events practice. It's focused on energetic health, the creative therapeutic arts, and human design as the strategic methodology for helping high achievers in businesses really win in business and achieve high performance through energy, which is, the most valuable asset that we have, but also by far, I think, the most overlooked.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I love how it sounds to me like maybe you found human design accidentally on purpose. Like you were looking for something, and all of a sudden, human design was here for you. And I love accidentally on purpose because that is so much a part of my journey and how I fell into what I did accidentally on purpose. And I love that. And I love the focus on energy because um, I always say, like, I have time and I have energy, but I don't always have energy and time at the same time.
Mm.
Um,
Mhm.
so, can you tell us a little bit about human design and what it is? Because I know there are people who are watching and listening and thinking, okay, that sounds really interesting, but like, what actually is it?
Yeah, for sure. So, human design is a system that was actually channeled by a man named Ra Uru back in the 80s. And it draws from a number of different mediums. It draws from astrology, from the I Ching system, the chakra system, epigenetics, quantum science. And it is a system that gives a user manual to what your individual energy body is configured as, in addition to the rest of the energy in the world. And I think what's impactful about human design is, modern quantum science has caught up in the past couple of decades that we are more than just this physical like meat suit that we look in the mirror at every day. There's this invisible field of energy that is around us and lying underneath us at all times. And it's determining everything for us. It's dictating everything. And even though it isn't visible to the naked eye, it is running the show completely. And you know, I think it's something that's so impactful, but can also be intimidating of like, okay, great. Yeah, energy matters so much, but what am I going to do about it? I can't see it. No one's talking about it. Well, what does that all mean? Human design gives a system for it because it breaks apart how everybody in the world's energy is wired differently, how energy dynamics between human to human works, how energy communicates with each other, and it kind of enables us to make sense of something that is invisible and so complex in doing so. And you can find out a lot through it that, you know, we'll get into throughout the chat, but through that, it will show you how you are wired to work. It can give you insight into what your strengths and talents are. It can give you insight to what your proper productivity and communication strategy is, the wellness rituals that you need to follow to get the best results of your energy. So a complex and robust system, but game-changing when you learn it for yourself.
Yeah. Oh, I love that explanation so much. It's so much better than the clumsy explanation I give people when people ask me what human design is. So thank you for being so eloquent. And as you were speaking about quantum science really catching up with things, reminded me of my first energy experience. So it was about 9 years ago, 10 years ago now. I was getting divorced, and I knew I needed to reach out and grab hold of every good thing I can find. And I had a friend who did energy work, and I was like, okay, fine. Because she had been asking me, she's like, come to my house and let's just play. Like, let's do some energy work. And I was like, no, that's like really hokey. Like, it's not really my jam. And so finally I was like, what do I have to lose? And I went over and she worked on me and she was like, oh, your energy is really receptive. I remember the first thing she said, and I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And I think that was the first time I really paid attention to energy, like in my body and how I felt. Because the next morning when I woke up, I felt like every cell in my body was like awake and attuned to the universe. And it was this really cool feeling. And I was like, oh, well, how can I get more of that? And how can I better understand what this energy that I have is and how it works? And I love the part that human design has played in my life because I am a huge fan of like all of the assessments. If there is an assessment tool, I have taken it and I take them and then I'm like, oh, this is so fascinating. And then I'm like, how do I use it? I don't know. What does it mean? I don't really know. And so I just kind of put it on the shelf and go to the next shiny thing. And I have said to my husband more times than I can count, like, I wish I had a way to lay it all out, to see where it overlaps, to see where it all fits. And then I found human design. And as I was journaling through my human design, I was like, oh, here are my Clifton strengths. Oh, here's my Enneagram. Oh, here's all of the other things that I've ever done. And it was like human design provided the foundation. That's not the right word. It provided the tool that made everything else that I had been learning about myself make sense.
Yeah. I love that you were able to see your Clifton strengths and your Enneagram come to life through your human design chart. I always get that same reaction of, oh, that's overlapping with this other test that I took. And I think that's very validating when you see that. And then when you figure out that there's a map in human design that shows it all. Even your friend saying that you are a highly receptive person, that made me smile because, your human design chart, which I know we'll show later, shows your receptivity in map form. It shows that you're like this open, porous person that, can take in and receive a lot of energy. So the fact that, whether or not you have your map in front of you, whether or not you know your human design, it is likely showing up in ways in your life, consciously and unconsciously, throughout your entire life, which I find to be so fascinating.
Yeah. So, all right. So everybody has a human design is like this affects everybody, right? Like there's nobody for whom human design is not a part of them.
Right, exactly. So everybody has an energy field. And you can think of your energy field as the 6 to 8 feet that are surrounding your body. That is your energy field. And there are 5 main types of energy fields that the human population can break down into, which is known as your human design type, also called your energy type or your work type. So the human population can be broken down into 70% are considered generator types. And that breaks down further to 2 types of generators. You have your true generators, which are 37% of the population, your manifesting generators, which are 33% of the population. You can be a manifester, which is 9% of the population, a reflector, which is 1%, or a projector like the two of us, which is 20% of the population. And each of these energy types are wired and configured differently on the way that they, kind of operate and move through the world. So I'll start with manifestors. Manifestors, again, this is 9% of the population. Manifestors are those trailblazers and those initiators. They tend to be these visionary people who can get things started and kick things off. And in doing so, they have the ability to bring together the resources that are required to put their vision into action. So they're a great person to have on your team if you want to do something new, do something daring, and get something happening. They need their independence, and they crave their independence in order to be able to thrive in the workplace. So if you try to control them, you will probably regret it. Definitely that kind of like leader energy type. Next, we have the generators, which are 37% of the population, and generators are the builders and the doers. So if you have a generator on your team, they are someone who are going to work on the project loyally until it gets done. They have the energy to be able to do things and do it until completion. And it's important for them to follow work that brings them joy, because if they do, their energy can really be nonstop. And then we have manifesting generators, which is 33%. And you can think of a manifesting generator as the best of both worlds of the generator and the manifesting type. They are express builders and express doers. So they get a lot of things done, and they can build things the same way that a generator does, but in a really fast way, because they're so driven, so full of gumption. And they're kind of these jack of all trades. They're the ultimate multitasker. They need to be able to move fast and follow their own flow, and no one else's. And that's really important for them to follow their joy as well in the work that they're doing. So those are the first 3 types. Then we have projectors, which again, myself and Amanda are both projectors, and those are the guides, the advisors, the managers. We have an ability to be able to see into people kind of deeply and recognize people deeply, which is what makes us adept at being able to guide and kind of manage energy and where energy should be used. What makes our type particularly unique is that we work best in shorter sprints than the other energy types. So we do best in like a 4-hour workday, and then having time to rest and recharge. And when we do give ourselves ample time of rest and recharge, that is what allows us to get a full days of work done in only 4 hours. And then lastly, we have the rare reflector type, which is only 1% of the population. And they are the analysts and the evaluators. They are very energetically sensitive. So when they are in an environment, when they're on a work team, they have the ability to kind of reflect back how healthy or how well a project or a plan is going because of how much they absorb. So let's say you have a question of, is my work team, working well together, or do we have a toxic environment? Your reflector is going to be showing it if they are surrounded by toxicity because of how porous they are. So the environment, the people that they're around, the office culture that they're in can really make or break their health.
Oh, that is so interesting. And I'm just thinking now, as you were describing each type, of the people I know who fall into each one.
Mm.
I have a really good friend of mine who is a manifesting generator, and the things she is able to do is amazing. And the way she knows herself and is really lovely about self care and carving out that time for her so that she has the energy to really create these beautiful things for the world, to make the world a better place. Just brings me so much joy to really recognize people in those descriptions that you gave.
Yeah, it's always so interesting. I feel like when you hear the description, you're like, "Ooh, I know somebody that sounds like that," and then they end up pulling up their chart, and it's like, "Oh, I knew it!" Like, there's just something about it that really ends up being evident in the way that they operate, whether or not they know what their design is.
Awesome. No, that's so interesting. So I want to bring up my chart, if that's
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
because I feel like there are folks who are listening who are like, "Ooh, that's interesting, but like, what is this chart? What does it look like? What does it tell us?" So
Mhm.
I'm going to pull it up. Um, it's kind of small on my window, but can you talk to us about what this is and what we see here?
Yeah. So the figure that you're seeing is the human body. And you can follow along that outline when you think about what your energy configuration looks like. Each of those geometric shapes are the chakras. So if you're familiar with the chakras, human design follows, a very similar system to the chakras. I call them energy zones. And each of these energy zones are these hubs that live within your body that each have distinct talents and thematic usage in your life. And in the way that you operate. So that is what you're seeing with all those different shapes. And depending on how yours is colored in, will dictate what energy type you are. So, for example, Amanda is a projector, and uh, projectors have are distinct because they have a hypersensitive or white colored sacral zone, which is the in the center of the chart, but the second square up is the sacral zone. So long story short, the design of your chart is what is dictating your type. When you look on the left and the right side of this body graph, you'll see a lot of different numbers, and those are the gates of your human design. And those are going to be the talent archetypes or the energy archetypes that make up things like what your greatest strengths and talents are. You can find insights about your life purpose in there. You can figure out what your zones of genius are through those numbers. Um, So, and then on the right side, you'll see kind of a breakdown of some of the main highlights that come along with your chart. So that wasn't me giving any really insider information of what that means, but that is how at like a high glance you can understand at least what all of these shapes and sizes are kind of adding up to.
Awesome. So if somebody wants to get their chart, where do they find it? How can they get one?
Yeah, so you can head over to my website, jillianknowles.com/ get your profile. And you can download your free chart there. It is based upon your birth time, place, and date. And on my website, the charts are specialized to spit out information that is related to your career, work, and the way that you approach business specifically. And all the information that you get is interpreted from me based in that lens. So that's where you can find it. There are a lot of other sites as well where you can find, general information about your human design too.
Awesome. So when we get our chart, what do we what do we look for? Like, what is the first thing we should know about our human design?
Yeah. So I'd say first you want to figure out what your energy work type is, the way that we spoke about how the two of us are projectors. And what's really kind of important to highlight, I think, about the types is, again, 70% of the world are generator types. Which means that we live in a world that was designed by generators and really designed for generators. We live in a generator world. And I think that is why a lot of people who fall into that other 30% bucket might find themselves experiencing things like repeat burnouts, or just kind of feeling like, all right, yeah, I know that people say that I should be doing this for self-care, or I see that everyone else works this way, but for some reason it's not really aligning for me. That might be why you feel that way. That's not to say that the 70% of people who fall into the generator bucket don't have their own challenges that they run into, because generators have this aura that people can kind of pick up on the fact that they have a lot of energy to give. So generators have historically been overworked, and their ability to work so hard and use their energy has been manipulated in a lot of ways. So we all have our struggle in various ways, but I do think that's important just to recognize of kind of the landscape that we're working in when we think about work and about the way that we operate. And each type has their own strategy. And this strategy is the manner in which you are meant to socialize and produce work most effectively and sustainably. So each type will have its own strategy. And I would say if you walk away with anything from this session, knowing your type, your strategy, and your authority, which I'll get into next, would be key. And when it comes to your social and productivity strategy, this is going to come down to the way that you're meant to work, and in the fashion you're meant to work, and also in the way that you are meant to communicate. When we typically think of communication style, we think, okay, how clearly and effectively is this person speaking and communicating their thoughts and so forth. But again, we have this energy field around us, and we each have our own energetic aura. And that energetic aura is communicating for us in ways that we don't see, and in ways that other people don't see, but they're definitely receiving from us. So when I work with my clients on their leadership style and on executive presence, I always get back to what their strategy is and what their aura is, because knowing, how to communicate can get you so far, but people are picking up on your vibe. People are picking up on this energy that you're giving off, and that's going to affect how well your message is received. So, for example, all the generator type, 70% of the population, has this very open and enveloping energetic aura. It's this very warm aura that kind of attracts in people to see that they have some energy to give. It's this very like inviting aura when they enter into a room. And because of that, their strategy is to wait to respond, because the energy aura that they're giving off calls in people to say things to them, suggest things to them, invite them in to do things. And what a generator type is meant to do is respond with either a yes or a no based off of how they feel in their gut. So it's literally, if you're a generator, you can put your hand on your stomach right now. And if you ask yourself, what do I want to eat for dinner? Do I want pasta or do I want sushi? Right? You can literally feel on your stomach if it's more of this expansive feeling, which means yes, like, or if it's more of this like contractive feeling, like, then that means no, your body's telling you no. That's the strategy that you can follow for how you go about making decisions, how you know what the right project is to focus on, if you should say yes or no to, you know, that date or that job opportunity. That's going to be the best strategy for you to follow. Manifestors aura is more of this like closed, repelling energy aura. So if a manifestor is not in the mood to be interacting with you, you'll probably like feel them being just like a bit more closed off. But their aura makes a really big impact, which is why they're able to get things done and why they have that, you know, ability to be initiators. So their strategy is to inform other people before they take action, because their actions have the ability to impact people so profoundly. So it's important for them to use their voice and inform people who are going to be affected by whatever decision they're making. So if they're thinking of quitting their job, but they have a family at home, making sure that they're sitting down and saying, hey, here's all the reasons why I've decided that I'm going to resign. Here's, you know, what my plan is from XYZ. Because if they don't inform before they take that kind of manifesting initiatory action, it can really affect people and work against them and cause them, you know, unnecessary issues when people don't realize or know why they're doing something. For Amanda and I and anyone else that's a projector on the call, we have this very focused, penetrative aura. So when we have our sight set on something, our energy field kind of like just kind of emits and like focuses all of our attention on that, whether that's a romantic partner or a job opportunity. Like people can kind of feel this like penetrating energy from us. And it is best for us to take the strategy of waiting for others to come to us, waiting for us to receive an invitation. And that can be frustrating. Amanda, I'm curious if you've ever felt frustrated by this, but I know for me, I'm a very action-oriented person. I'm an Aries. When I found out that my strategy was to wait for an invitation, I was like, what are you talking about? I make things happen. But we are meant to study our craft. I like to call it the magic in-between period. We're supposed to study our craft and follow, you know, our talents and focus there, and then allow ourselves to be seen for it. And when we do, then other people can recognize us for that. And then we receive invitations to put that into action accordingly. And then lastly, reflectors, they have a strategy that is meant to wait an entire lunar cycle of 29 days before they make any big decisions. And that goes back to the fact that they are so energetically sensitive. Because they're so energetically sensitive, they need to wait those 29 days to make sure that the actions and the decisions that they're making are actually based upon what their energy is and not something that they picked up along the way. So waiting 29 days for any big decisions, not like what am I going to eat for dinner, but any big decisions of, okay, am I going to make this move? Do I want to enter into this relationship with this person? It's best for them to wait 29 days to make sure that they're making the choice that's really right for them.
Yeah, all of this is so interesting. And I remember being a little taken aback when I learned that I was a projector because I've always referred to myself as an all the things doer. I'm interested in all the things, I do all the things. I've been called the Energizer Bunny. Coworkers have commented how, like, oh my gosh, you churn out so much work. It's amazing. And then when I look at how I'm energetically wired, I'm like, oh, this could maybe explain why I'm so tired all the time and
Yeah.
why when I get home from work, I don't have much left to give anybody. Um,
Yeah, exactly that. And I think that comes back down to, you know, we're projector types that are operating in a generator world. So similar to you, but before I found my human design, I would have sworn that I was like a super generator because of the amount that I was working, all the things that I was getting done. But that's what was leading to the repeat burnouts. That was, similar to what you said, like leaving me with a very empty cup at the end of the day. So in human design, it's called the deconditioning process, where you find out what your type is, you find out what your strategy, what your authority is, and all of that. And then you'll see these areas where, okay, I've been following along with that my whole life. Great. But then you're also going to see some areas where you're like, ooh, I have not been acting in accordance to that at all. And it's a process that can take upwards of 7 years for you to peel back the layers and get to the true way that you're supposed to be operating and functioning in the world. And I think that's where journaling can come into play quite a bit, and is an exercise that I always take my clients through, because when you find out what your type is, it does take time for you to reflect on it, think back to all the ways that you have been acting in accordance to this, how you haven't, and what it would look like for you to kind of shift gears, and then to experiment with it and to try it out and to try it on for size. And I think it's a trial and error process as you do so. But as you kind of get down to that layer of acting more and more in accordance to your human design chart, it's just such a game changer for the way that you're living your life and approaching your career and your work.
Yeah, and what you said about waiting for the invitation, like, made so much sense of conflict I had had in the past. So I've told the story before about how I had mean girl troubles in second grade. That a girl moved in halfway through second grade, stole my best friend, and then they wouldn't let me play. And I would come home so upset every day. And my mom would tell she was, I'm sure, more frustrated than anything else. She's like, Amanda, not everyone has to like you. And I'm like, yes, they do. I'm so likable. So I'm like, what are the things that I can do to make these girls like me? I'm like, do you want my sparkly pencil? Do you want my snacks? Do you want the great idea I have for a class play? Right? None of these things I would do would make them like me any better. And it was years and years later, I had a similar experience. I was at work. I wanted everybody to like me. I was a school librarian. I worked with everyone across the school. And there was this one staff person who just didn't like me. And I remember one day I brought in a basket of muffins and I was like, oh, I made muffins. Would you like a muffin? And she was like, no, thanks. And I was like, no, I made you muffins. Would you like a muffin? And she was like, no, I don't want your muffin. And I remember being so hurt. And as I was reflecting on wait for the invitation, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
She did not want my thing. Like, I am not for her. She doesn't want my muffins, and that's okay because these people do recognize that I'm a really great muffin maker, and they are so happy when they see that I brought muffins in to share.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that gets into an area of your chart that you can find where it talks about your signature, where when you're acting against your strategy, you will experience bitterness. So, for example, like when someone is saying, "No, I don't want your muffin. No, I don't want to play on the playground with you," you can feel bitter. But if you're waiting for the invitation, if you're waiting to be recognized, when you do get that recognition, when you do get that invitation, you feel that feeling of success. And I think it was interesting, even the way that the two of us connected, Amanda, when you invited me to come on the show, you first said, "Hey, I really like the way that you talk about human design, and I haven't heard someone talk about it that way before." That was a feeling of success for me because you recognized something in me. And then in return, I was like, "Yeah, and I'm a really big fan of your work because of journaling." So it was just this mutual recognition process that can make you feel success, as opposed to, as a projector, in business, for example. This has been a really interesting learning lesson for me as I've launched my business, because cold pitches and kind of knocking down on doors and kind of the traditional ways that you think of acquiring clients doesn't necessarily work for a projector. And when I first started off my business, I was pissed about that until I figured out, oh, okay, I'm supposed to let people recognize and invite me in, and that feels so much better, and you don't feel that feeling of bitterness. And for generator types, it's this feeling of frustration or satisfaction. For manifestors, it's anger or peace. And for reflectors, it's surprise or disappointment. So you can also just think of those two feelings in your mind day to day. And that can also be a really helpful barometer for you of, am I acting in alignment to my human design chart or not? Because if you're feeling the negative more than you're feeling the positive, then some area of your chart is probably wonky.
Yeah. Oh, that it is so, so neat to see how much just those couple few areas of our charts inform so much of who we are and how we can live really a life that feels good to us.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's just scratching the surface. Like, there's so much there. So if folks are interested in learning more, they've gotten their chart, and I'm pulling this link back up for folks. Go and get your chart, and then if you want to know more, what is the next step for folks?
Yes. So download your chart, and I host human design office hours. I'm really passionate about teaching people about their design. So if you want to deep dive into your results, for you to hear, a high level interpretation of what you're seeing, on that link, you can sign up for an office hour call, and I'm happy to walk you through it. And then other ways that you can kind of do your own research about your human design chart. There are a couple of recommended resources, jovianarchive.com, humdes.info.com, and genekeys.com are kind of the three sites that I recommend as starter sites. But as I mentioned in the beginning, human design is a really robust and complex system. It took me years of research to develop the hacks and strategies that I use today. And a lot of people don't have time for that. So that's where my work comes into play. I work with people through a lifestyle and wellness membership called the Energy on Demand membership that you can check out on my website. And through that, it's focused on boosting your energetic wellness, giving you these performance hacks and communication strategies, and hacking your work and your lifestyle routine, all according to your human design chart. So you don't have to think about all the aspects of your human design. I become an expert on your human design instead, and help you through that in your work and in your lifestyle over a quarter. But the main way that I work with people on human design is through my leadership and career coaching. When it comes to taking all the insights of your human design and applying it to how you are embodying a magnetic leadership style, executive presence, finding a career that is aligned with your purpose and working according to your work type and having strong work wellness. I host one-on-one leadership and career coaching sessions where we'll deep dive into your entire chart and then apply it to your career vision, apply it to all aspects of your work. And that is also a 5-month program if you'd like longer term support on it too.
Awesome. So great. Well, Jillian, thank you so, so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your expertise. I absolutely love this. I would love to talk more about my human design for sure. So I will be following up with you.
Amazing.
And I really, really appreciate you. This has been so fun.
This has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much, Amanda.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us. And we will see you next time.